Good evening. I first would like to start by saying thank you to Professor M.R. Khadilkar. I like the way you addressed him as patron. Actually, he is the founding mentor, and I was telling him that he is the Narayan Murthy of VIIT College. I want you all to give him a big round. You know, I passed out from VIIT College in 1992, and I have come back here after 22 years. I cannot describe the feeling that you get when you come back to your alma mater. And I would like to thank Dr. Bilavari to give me the invitation to come and talk to you. At first I was thinking, what am I going to talk? But then Professor Khadilkar said, no, I think you've done quite a bit to share. So I wanted today talk about 3 stories in my life, just 3 things that I want you to leave with. And if you can remember that for the rest of your career, I think I would have done my job. The first thing that I want to tell you is have no fear. Be brave. Now, I know most of you who are here in final year would be going out and either working or starting a new venture. It's always easy to go and work for an organization. I know it's difficult to form a startup. I have done myself. I started a company back in '94 after working for 2 years for an American corporation called United Technologies. And I cannot describe the amount of struggle those years. You know, there was no internet, there was no cell phones. We literally had to do business. So I think in that perspective, this generation is extremely fortunate. You have amount of technology available at a click of a button. It also puts some constraints that you have to compete with more smarter people who also have the same information as you have. And therefore, I said be brave and have no fear. Human beings are actually born with just 2 fears. The first fear is the fear of noise, and the second fear is the fear of heights. Other than that, all the other fears that we create, and I would like to quote something that I read about fear. Fear was defined nicely as false evidence appearing real. Now, a lot of time we have fear. What if I start a company and I fail? How will I get my money? How will I pay for my student loan? We have someone here from the bank who finances student loan. And I'm sure, to pay, I was asking somebody when I came to the college, what is the fees now? Because after 22 years to find out what's the fees now. And he was smilingly telling me it's 1 lakh rupee per year. I said, wow, you are investing 4 lakh rupees. Professor Khadilkar, you would remember I only paid 3,000 rupees, back in the 1988. And I have a story of my own where I came from Dubai. I grew up in Dubai where I did my schooling. And my father was actually not very happy seeing me educate. He was like, why do you want to study? I have a 5-star hotel here in Dubai and you want to go and study? And I said, yes, I want to go and do engineering. And I landed here in a place called Vishwapreneur. Could not even pronounce it. So when I called my father and I said, I'm in Vishwapreneur, and those days we had to make an ISD call. There was no cell phone. So my father was like, do you get chicken there or do you have to eat vegetarian? So can you imagine? Those were the days. And I'm so delighted to see a wonderful road today I came. I mean, you students have inherited these infrastructure. We didn't even have a road. We had just a couple of speed breakers to come to the college. And the rest of the road was was completely, there was no tar road also in most of the, so I think coming back to what I want to leave you with is, have no fear, be brave. A lot of you who will go out from college will wonder, where am I going to work? What am I going to do? Which company am I going to work with? What profession am I going to choose? I've done engineering, therefore I should go and work for a Forbes Marshall or a Thermax or a Babcock Wilcox. No, I don't think that's what it is. Or go and work for an Infosys or a Wipro. Well, really, I think that brings me to what my second point is: follow your passion. And I'm sure everybody will talk to you about, but I want to expand that and say, be willing to experiment with your life. Give yourself a few years. If you really like to do something and you're passionate about doing that, and it may not have money. You know, I like Raju Hirani, who made this movie Three Idiots, and I remember there was a guy, incidentally his name was also Farhan, who becomes a forest kind of guy. He wants to take photography as his passion, and his father does not allow him. I could relate when I met Madhavan. I said, how did you know my life story, by the way? He said, I didn't know that. It was just a coincidence. But, you know, that's the real thing. Engineering has given you a logical ability to think, analyze, and go and do what you want to do. But most important is follow your dream. You know, don't land up in a job and then curse yourself every day morning. What am I doing? I'm going every day morning, I'm doing this work, I'm earning maybe 25,000, somebody, my peer is earning 50,000. That's a rat race, as I call it. And unfortunately, we in India still are in the rat race, where parents want to talk in the society, you know, my son passed out from this college and has got a job in Cummins and gets 25,000 rupees a month. Unfortunately, that's not the way we should be looking at progress. Really what you have within yourself, and follow your dream, follow your heart. So be willing to experiment and fail. I can tell you from my own story. I started this company back in '94 with just 2 employees. And it took me about 15 years to bring it to a 400 crore top line with about 500 employees across India. But let me tell you, I failed every day. I failed in recruiting people. I failed in assessing the market. We kept shifting the business model every quarter, saying, maybe this is not what we need to do, maybe this is how we need to do. So the most important thing in any business that you do or any job that you do is have that flexibility in your mind, be willing to experiment, and it's okay to fail. You know, one of the biggest problems in our society is we consider failure as a taboo. You know, if you fail, that means you're not good, and that means you can't do it. Well, that is to me a failure. Failure to me is, I tried doing this, I couldn't do it, maybe there is another way. And that is where I want to say, don't give up. You know, when you come to the work life and you start working, you will fail. You will not succeed, because it's not like learning from a textbook and going and writing a question and answer, right? You will be faced with real life situation when you will have to recruit people, you will have to manage them. Somebody in the car just told me he wants to do an MBA in Harvard Business School. I said, wow, I did it from there, but I did it after 20 years. 20 years. You know, when I was going to Harvard Business School back after I sold my business to an Australian company and worked for 3 years as MD, managed an $800 million company. And I wrote, in Harvard Business School, you have to apply. And I wrote a complete white paper and sent to the dean, and the dean called me. Incidentally, the dean's an Indian, Nitin Noria, and he said, Farhan, I want to ask you one question. Everybody in Harvard Business School writes about their successes. You've written about your failures. I said, Nitin, all those failures were my learnings. And I have failed, but I have learned how to manage an $800 million business. So I might have failed running a 400 crore company, going through a joint venture that failed, going through a merger and acquisition that failed, but what I have learned in life is how to connect with people. I heard Saurabh talking about connecting the dots. I'm reminded of Steve Jobs when he talked about his speech at Stanford Business School, which I'm sure you have all heard and seen on YouTube. And in case you have not, I would encourage you to go back and see that speech. You know, he talked about connecting the dots. I mean, how his whole life story, you know, how he formed the Apple Macintosh computer and got fired at age 30 after 10 years being a founder of his own company, and then coming back to Apple to rewrite history. Today, literally everybody has some iPhone or an iPod or an Apple product in their pocket or somewhere, you know, and that's the power of Steve Jobs. So I want to say, be willing to experiment, and it's okay to fail. The third thing I want to talk to you all is maintain humility. Now, my own life, you know, I can share when you go up in your corporate career, as you build a business, as you grow a company, as you grow within your job, you will meet people across, and right from a peon in an office to a office assistant, to a clerk, to a manager, to a general manager, right up to the CEO, you will meet a lot of people. Be nice with people. Maintain humility. Never have pride, because my father taught me what goes up in life also comes down. You will meet the same people when you come down in your life, and these people will remember what you did with them, and they will. So it's important. You know, I'm reminded of a nice story. About 40 years back, a man woke up and read his own name in an obituary, saying so-and-so died, and he was shocked. He was shocked to read the headline said, "The merchant of death has died." And he said, "Oh my God, is that the way the world is going to remember me? I never wanted the world to remember me as a merchant of death. I created dynamite to be known as somebody who created dynamite, but the world called him the merchant of death." And it was a mistake that somebody put his name in the obituary, and he said to himself that day, "I have to change myself, what I've done." And since that day, he worked on peace, and he got the Nobel Prize. Now, I'm sure by now you have understood, I'm referring to Alfred Nobel, who got the Nobel Prize. But how many of you in this room know that he invented dynamite? Very few, very few. But the world remembers him as the man who worked on peace. And I think that's what you have to think for yourself. What impression are you leaving in the minds of people with whom you work, with whom you come in contact? Be nice, maintain humility. I think that's what is very important in life. You know, in life, what will take you up, remember, you will also come down. So I want to end my talk by really giving you a short message. I know many of you might have read the book, Stay Hungry, Stay Foolish. I'm sure.